So this is a video I've gone back and forth on in terms of recording it, and mostly because I think that this is widely known, but it's not discussed that much actually. It's sort of I almost want to say people keep it hidden maybe for a reason. They don't make videos like this often, but it's just a basic understanding of how to read a company's income statement directly from the source. So what I mean by that is I'm on the investor relations page of Tesla, and I think that's the first thing I want to say is if a stock is publicly traded, it has an investor relations page. All you have to do is type in the stock symbol, so in Google or whatever search engine you use, TSLA or Tesla Investor Relations. You'll most likely end up on a page like this. And of course, there are platforms that show you income statements or balance sheets, but I promise you're going to learn infinitely more information going directly to the source. So this is the investor relations page for Tesla. And take a look here. What you'll find is I have quarterly disclosures here. You can see each quarter. Remember, a quarter happens every 3 months. So a company reports earnings every 3 months, and they put out all of this information. They put out an official press release, so you can read quite literally the press release from the company. They highlight a few key details. They give you some information about joining the earnings call, so you can join it. You can listen in with your phone or your computer, anything of that sort. But keep in mind, these press releases also, they don't just go out. I mean, the leadership of the company reviews it. They probably all agree on a title. They definitely probably read this text to some degree. It goes through many iterations, no matter how simple it is. They've clearly shown to show these key data points, and that alone should tell you that's a KPI for the company because they're showing it right here front and center. This matters to them. So this is something even they're tracking and might impact their bottom line. Now, if you keep going over, you have shareholder deck. So oftentimes you can actually see these sort of actual decks created by the company. And I would add that this is, you could go to a financial portal to get this information, but you're not going to get it nearly as detailed as this. And if you're an investor in this company, downloading this deck and reading through it, so they have a whole update here on artificial intelligence. So just reading through this deck will provide so many insights into the company that you are invested in and tell you about their product, what they're proud of, what they want to show investors, what they want to show the market and the world. Here are their key metrics: vehicle deliveries, operating cash flow, free cash flow, net income. Really just starting from their investor relations page, it's truly remarkable what you can find on it, and probably the most detailed information that is out there because it's coming directly from the company. And they have huge staff and financial experts and teammates involved and auditors going through all this. Don't get me wrong, sometimes there's fraud in markets. It happens over and over again. Sometimes some bad things do slip by, but for the most part, this is studied pretty rigorously. Now, going back to the IR page, a few other tips is you can listen to the actual earnings call, or here's the question and answer. And then you have your SEC filing. And the SEC filing, I think, is two things you should know. When you see 10K, so you see the K here, that's sort of the end of year. It's the year wrap, 10K. 10Q, well, it's a quarterly report. Just what it sounds like. This is the third quarter. So this is the third quarter report, second quarter, first quarter. It's really just looking into the quarterly analysis of the company, whereas 10Ks give you that full year breakdown, and it's going to look a little different than the 10Q. Now, what I should say before diving into these docs is that these are really boring docs. When you see SEC filing, it's generally pretty boring. There's a reason why people prefer to use platforms or chat with others or use social media to get their information or read news, because these are not the most exciting files to look at. But once again, related to this shareholder deck, which is actually kind of fun to look at, it's really nicely done, is that you're going to get the information directly from the source. So if you click 10K, you can actually see that this was filed with the SEC. This was filed with the United States government. There are things in here that you probably want to know. What are they filing with the U.S. government? You can't just read a news article and expect to understand all of this. And I just want to show you one more thing here as I move my camera around is watch this. I'm going to click and hold. It doesn't tell me how many pages, but we'll just go to the very bottom. This is 112 pages worth of information. And look at all of the people who have signed it as well. The whole team has signed it. They've clearly reviewed it. They've definitely gone through this. This is pretty intense stuff here. But the point of me making this video is just to give everyone an introduction to what I believe is the most important way to get financial information about your favorite stocks or investments. And after all, this is why I'm making my YouTube channel. You'll see it in every video. I've spent my whole career, a decade plus, helping companies and products with sort of financial tools, whether it's charts, social networks, financial information, visualizations, trading tools, all sorts of aspects of this market I've worked on for the last decade. And now I'm trying to give away everything I've learned for free right here on my YouTube channel so that tons of people can learn something new. So as you go through this SEC filing, I just think it's important to know that this is where you should spend most of your time if you actually are investing in one of these companies or following them. And also, I think that if you print it out, staple it, read it, if you have a phone that has a good PDF viewer, that might be helpful as well. But really the point of this video is I wanted to show more of the quick income statement aspect to remind you of. So you can see here on page 50, depends on what page that you're looking at or what company you're viewing. You can see here it says consolidated statements of operations. And so you can get a feel for what happened to Tesla. And this actually says year ended, so it's a full year. And now you can read it just as you would if you ran a lemonade stand. So if you ran a lemonade stand called Tesla, you can see right here what your revenues are and the line items within your revenue. So in this case, automotive sales, how many cars did they sell? You can see then the number right here. Now it's in millions. This is key to read. So you know this number here is millions. So that's 509 million. That means the next number is billion. So 78 billion, 78.5 billion is what their automotive sales were in 2023. Now, like I said, though, I just told you the lemonade stand example, so you can try to envision this as if it said cups of lemonade sold. So it's not accounting for how much it cost you to get the cups, get the stand, get the mix, get the spoons to stir. It has none of that. It's just how many cups did you sell? That's revenue. And as you work your way down, so actually let me step back. When you see these bold items here, revenues in bold, everything underneath it is a subcategory that makes up that bold phrase. So this is revenues. So how much money did they generate by selling their items? And then these are all the items that they sold and how it's broken down. So you can see here total automotive revenues, 82 billion, because they had regulatory credits and leasing. Actually, kind of interesting to see that energy generation and storage they did quite well on at 6 billion. So total revenues, 96 billion actually, when you add it all up together. Now, cost of revenues is now where things get important because this is what I'm talking about. Just picture the lemonade stand again. Everything else now is, well, how much did it cost to sell everything? Because you might have sold a cup of lemonade for $1, but maybe it costs 50 cents to get all the cups. Maybe it costs, 50 cents to get all the cups, the sugar, the spoons, the table, the stand. So you do 50 cents, that was all your costs, minus $1, that's what you sold it for. Your profit was 50 cents. Well, this works the same way. So here are your costs. This is how much each item cost. And then you get your gross profit. So you can see what they made. When you look at just simply how much revenue they generated and then subtract out those cost of revenues, you can see their gross profit was 17 billion. But this is where these income statements can sometimes get a little tricky, and I would encourage people to keep this in mind. And I've learned this the hard way. Gross profits really don't matter. The reason why they don't matter is if you look at the next item here, it says operating expenses. You have to subtract now the operating expenses from the gross profit to get your net income. So gross profit to me is always a sort of strange way to break it out. I wish it didn't exist. I wish they just showed revenues. So now, okay, I can see they did 96 billion in revenues. Then I'd just like to see cost of revenues and operating expenses. So cost of revenues and operating expenses, and then subtract that from revenues. Gross profit throws a lot of people off. It's not, what is a profit of? It's a profit of sort of just the costs, the inputs, but it doesn't count research and development costs. It doesn't count selling, general, and administrative costs. So you can see it still had total operating expenses of 8 billion. And then you need to take that out as well from the gross profit. And then you work your way down this item, down this list: interest income, interest expense, other income, income before income taxes. Then, of course, you've got all these tax things that are going on. So benefit from or provision from income taxes. And then you get your net income here. In this case, it says here, 14 billion. Now, by the way, when I read these income statements and I see things like this, benefit from provision for income taxes or all these tax aspects, I'm reminded about the United States tax code, and it should just be so much more simple. There are just so many loopholes and workarounds that can make a large change to a company's net income. I mean, you can see here that the total revenues was 96 billion. Remember, this is revenue, so total revenue is 96 billion. Then the cost of revenues, you can see here, total cost of revenues is 79 billion. So your gross profit is 17 billion. But then you subtract out the operating expenses, which I just explained: research and development, selling, general, and administrative. And then you see that you're now down to 8 billion because it says income from operations. So you're at 8.8 billion. And then there's sort of this interest income. So they made some money on interest, $1 billion. So now they're up to 9.9 billion. But if you look, they got this $5 billion tax provision, so now their net income is 14 billion. That is just remarkable that our tax code is to that extent. And there really should be, that's another aspect you'll learn going through these statements. But that's why some companies also succeed, because they're really intelligent with how they maneuver their income statement. Now, you'll oftentimes see, by the way, earnings per share, and this is where earnings per share comes from. So if you've stuck around in this video for the whole time, you're now going to learn how earnings per share is calculated. So recall that net income right here, 14.9 billion, or you can even see net income attributable to common shareholders, 14.9 billion. Well, how do you now know earnings per share? Well, you take this net income and you divide it by the number of shares outstanding, and that means each one share is essentially entitled to that amount of net income. And it comes out to $4.73 basic, or diluted if you count for all the future shares, $4.30. So as a shareholder, you're entitled at a basic level to $4.73 in earnings that specific quarter. Now, if you want to know what it is for a year, and you think they're going to do $4.73 every single quarter, there's 4 quarters in a year. Do 4 times 4. That's your earnings per share for the full year. Of course, it fluctuates by quarter based on demand, sales, costs. But really, the key to this video was just providing everyone with sort of the starting point for understanding how to read a company's income statement. Now, I would also add, because I just spoke about net income and earnings per share, you'll also know when a company reports earnings, they often report their revenues. Revenues is a very important metric. This is where that comes from. It comes from this file. So when someone says that they expect Tesla to do $96 billion in revenue, this is a yearly. This is a yearly report. That's right. I'm looking at the annual. And by the way, that's a key reminder here. You have to be on top of it when you do this, because I was just doing the earnings per share, $4, and then multiplying it by the full year, 4 quarters. It's not. Look, this is an annual income statement. And recall that I was looking already at the 10K, so I should know that I'm going to come across these annual statements. And really, to wrap up this video, I hope that you learn to just go directly to the source. Type in the stock, their IR page, get familiar with these SEC filings. And as I mentioned, these investor decks are simply beautiful, and you can read through these and get some fascinating insights. I, for one, look at this Tesla energy storage, had no idea their energy storage was growing like this, so I want to read this text. But more importantly, if you recall when I was looking at their revenue, so I'm doing this revenue breakdown, I spotted that energy generation and storage did $6 billion in 2023. It did $3.9 billion in 2022. Its energy generation and storage might become its fastest growing unit. It didn't double, but it's showing potential signs because it went from 2.7 to 3.9, 3.9 to 6. They really are becoming an energy company. Powerwall and things like that. And now I want to tie that in with the investor deck that they provided. Look at the text here, energy storage. Look at the graph. So this video was to show you the concept of understanding an income statement, but also just going directly to the source. So I really hope it helps all the new traders and investors out there. And I hope you are all starting to understand why my YouTube channel exists in the first place. So thanks so much for watching.